So, Toto Wolff isn't exactly sounding very optimistic in this article here on the F1 Chronicle.com. He's basically saying that McLaren could beat Mercedes not only in 2025, presumably, but also in 2026 after the new regulations come into force. So let's have a look at this one, guys. Full piece here on the F1Chronicle.com. Although Mercedes could get the jump on their rivals in 2026, Toto Wolff insists that wouldn't necessarily put the works team at the very top. Adrian Newey told Automotor und Sport this week that there is a strong possibility that Formula 1 will become an engine-dominated formula, at least initially when the rules change next year. That could partly explain why, amid the leadership turmoil at Red Bull last year, the 66-year-old decided to leave, as the outfit was losing its Honda Works power unit to Aston Martin, while Red Bull builds its own power units in collaboration with Ford. Now, of course, before anybody points it out, I know technically it was a Red Bull powertrain, but they did keep a lot of the Honda people from when they were actually directly involved in the Project Honda. And also on top of that too, it was a Honda engine before, what, 2020? I think 2020 was that last year of being an outright Honda? Might have been 21, but anyway, it's effectively an evolution of that. So initially it was a Honda power unit, but then eventually became a Red Bull one. So kind of a Honda power unit with a Red Bull badge and a few little tweaks here and there. That's basically what it was. Ferrari has 75 years of experience making engines, and Mercedes has 30 with HPP, high performance powertrains, said Red Bull team boss Christian Horner recently. The mountain we have to climb is huge. The last time the engine regulations were revolutionized with the move from naturally aspirated V8s to the current hybrid power units for 2014, Mercedes and its works team utterly dominated the next 7 years of the World Championship. It's no surprise then that team boss Wolff says he is not worried about the 2026 revolution. It's a really interesting challenge, he said. You have to do your job as well as possible on all levels. However, unlike 2014, this time the chassis regulations are changing arguably just as radically. A good engine alone is no use to us, Wolff agrees, because McLaren has that too. Indeed, McLaren won the Constructors' World Championship in 2024, with Mercedes merely fourth. There are no longer any disadvantages since the FAA standardized the engine maps for all teams of all manufacturers. McLaren CEO Zak Brown explains, unless you've got a Renault, then it blows up every now and again. But, you know, they weren't figuring any kind of championship battle anyway. The engine that Lewis Hamilton used was no better than Lando Norris's, he added. The factory team only has one advantage: they know the engine data earlier. That gives them a small head start when it comes to packaging and the components. Wolff agrees that the works Mercedes team will not have a big advantage if the new engine proves dominant. We'd then have to beat them with the chassis, said the Austrian. We have nowhere to hide. Yes, Mercedes were rather shown up last season. McLaren, you know, winning the championship as a non-works team when their actual works team is in the championship for the first time since Red Bull did it in the early 2010s, with Renault being on the grid too. It's very rare that happens. You know, you might say that, you know, there's been customer engines that have won championships. Most recently, of course, Max Verstappen with the Red Bull powertrain Honda. But of course, that is effectively their engine. They are the works team of Honda, and of course, they're the works team of themselves, Red Bull too. You know, and that's the thing as well. Mercedes will really have to perform well in 26. I mean, this year coming up, I don't think there's many big expectations on them. Personally, for me, I think they're going to be fourth again, probably, because they're going to be focusing all their efforts on 26. They did so well in 2014 because they kind of abandoned, well, not really abandoned, but they were working on that car for so long. They worked on that car early, I think 2012, something like that, 2011, they were starting with concepts for the engine and stuff like that, years before it all came to fruition. And then when they got out of the traps in 2014, they had a car that was 2-3 seconds a lap faster than everybody else on the grid. But it's the chassis where things are important too, of course, and unfortunately Mercedes have proven that they are the second fastest car with a Mercedes engine. They were firmly behind McLaren, miles off McLaren. They had the odd race win here and there. Of course, there were tracks around the calendar where they were the fastest car on the grid, but overall McLaren were faster than Mercedes for at least 15 of those 24 races last year. So we'll see how they they get on. He's right, they have nowhere to hide, and the pressure will very much be on. They can't really abandon the 25 car properly either. Not at first anyway, because there's a lot of people that are expecting Mercedes to do well. There's a lot of shareholders and a lot of expectation there. But when it comes to the drivers, I would argue this is the driver lineup from Mercedes that has had the least expectations on them. Since they've come back into Formula 1 in 2010, you've got a complete rookie in Kimi Antonelli, and you've also got George Russell, who, yes, he's a race winner, yes, he's a capable driver, we've seen that, but he's not a world champion. He's not a Michael Schumacher or a Lewis Hamilton. And Mercedes have had either Schumacher or Hamilton in the car every single season since 2010, apart from this year coming up. This is the first time. So I would say there is less pressure on Mercedes, but there is still pressure. And if they get beaten by McLaren again with their engine that they've given to McLaren, they're going to be red-faced again. They're going to be pretty embarrassed about that. But guys, what do you think? Where are Mercedes going to finish in 2025? And will they beat McLaren in 26? Can they beat McLaren in 25? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below as always. And of course, keep it subscribed to the F1Chronicle.com to see much more content on the world of Formula 1 just like this. Also head over to our Patreon as well. I've not really mentioned much about our Patreon, but we've just set up a Patreon here on the F1Chronicle.com. So if you want to help keep the lights on, help support us financially, that would be really, really appreciated, guys. So yeah, see you soon. Have a good one.